Okay, I'm here again. Yes, we are. We're up, we're running, everything seems to be working fine. And I have to say, I am streaming at, of course, the worst time because everybody who's involved in Dungeons and Dragons or watches or plays Dungeons and Dragons, they are all watching Critical Role right now, which is live. And I'm pretty sure it's right about now. So I'm what am I doing? I'm spending some time painting miniatures, and I've picked a black pudding of all things. Look, so if you're rewatching this, should you decide to rewatch this, you'll find the start time down in the description. I will usually put the start time down in the description. If you're watching this for the first time, by all means chat along with me while I'm doing my painting. And I thought that this was quite an entertaining message to present to you. When dealing with a lock, it's not about your lock picking skills, it's all about how you can seduce the lock into opening for you. Sounds ridiculous, but when I saw this it made me laugh. So I'm going to open up, and we are going to have a go at painting the black pudding that I made a little while back. And I've got a little picture for you. This is what they look like, and I have since then done a little bit more work on them, primarily to make sure that they are ready for painting. And we are going to pull that screen up and get started. Alright, there we are. Okay. Alright, so hi, welcome to How to D&D. Welcome to my little period of time where I kind of try to relax, and painting and doing the miniatures is essentially what that's all about. Is just trying to get that all sorted out. And I'm not exactly the most skilled individual when it comes to setting up and doing anything. So sometimes I might make a few errors, but I'm also needing some downtime. I've been doing a lot of videos, and I've discovered that it actually takes a lot out of you doing videos, particularly the live stream, and as many as I have been doing. So I thought what I would do is I would just take this time to sort of chill out a little bit and just sort of relax and have a chat with you guys about whatever you like. You want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, this is what my channel's always been about, is talking about that sort of thing. And I thought that would be a nice thing to do while I have a go at painting a black ooze. Nothing particularly complicated or difficult about painting a black ooze, as you might have guessed, but I also thought it would be fun to sort of have a little stab at it, and that's what I'm doing today. And it will help me hopefully relax. That's the key. How's it going there? I'm not an artist, but I enjoy watching you do these. Slightly tempted to try myself. Slightly tempted? I'm glad to hear that. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to definitely talk while I'm doing this. So this is the engulfing miniature that I made, and I've got a live stream that I did. It's all pre-recorded. This is the smaller version of the black pudding, and this is sort of the black pudding large size, but not trying to engulf anything. So I've got four miniatures, 3 different types to actually paint today. So I've got myself some water. Nothing particularly difficult about getting water. A container of water is the one thing you normally have when you're painting, right? And I've got myself a little painting tray, a bunch of brushes, and the colours I'm going to be using today are mostly black. So it'll be black and then white, and I've also got some grey, and I've also got myself some shading Nullen oil. So that is for shading, should I decide to do some shading. We'll see how that goes. But while I'm doing this, you are welcome to chat about anything to do with Dungeons and Dragons, 5e, not 5e, any of that sort of stuff. I'm quite happy to do. So let's just get on with this. First thing is, I'm going to get some. I was going to go straight to black, and then I thought, well, no, I won't. And now I'm actually thinking I'm going to go black, and then I'm going to go tan, and then I'm going to go white. So that's how I'm sort of going to highlight things. So it shouldn't take too long. I'm using the Vallejo paints, for those of you who are wondering. It's an acrylic paint, and all of the stuff you should be able to find down in the description if you're interested. And I like these because I can just squeeze out a certain amount of paint and that's it. and I don't get extra, and you don't have to try and get the cap off and it spill everywhere, which is a drag. Mostly with these sorts of paints, particularly when I'm applying it the first time, I do not water them down, and I've found that watering down the paints has not helped me in the slightest. They're watery enough as it is. Now you'll notice that these are coated grey. I have actually sprayed it with a primer, and the primer I used in this case was Fine Surface Primer. It is is it Tamiya? Tamiya? I think it's a Tamiya. It's the one with the stars on it. I went to buy a different product, and the manager in the store said, no, Fred, this is the one you want. So this is what I grabbed. But I honestly don't know whether it's great. Look, I can scrape this, and it's rubbery, and it does sort of come off. But then I figured with a sharp nail, you should be able to get it off anyway, right? So let's start getting some black on these so we can get organized. Now, what have I forgotten? I feel like I've forgotten something. I used to, that's right. I used to stick these things to containers. Didn't I have like a bunch of containers for doing that with, so I didn't wind up with a whole lot of black fingers? This is so you can actually get at it without having to sort of muck around too much. That's what I was forgetting to do. The reason I started late today is because I needed to, I had important business. I had an important date with a location that needed to be, well, I'm not going to disclose it, but it was important to make sure I got that down, because once I started here, I can't sort of wander off and sort of do my own stuff, right? So that's why I was a little bit late. Okay, so we've got a little bit of black on there, and I feel like I'm going to wind up with black fingers for sure. There are a few strands here, but it doesn't really matter. So yesterday I was running my game, and you know, I've been running these really short adventures, and I think I was talking about the fact that I'm using the book Prepared, A Dozen Short Adventures, and I'm also using the Book of Layers from Kobold Press. I think they're excellent books. I really enjoyed them, but I honestly thought I would get through a lot more material. But my players, they seem to be going slow. These are experienced people. They've been playing Dungeons and Dragons for a long time, and what I don't understand is why I wasn't getting through so much stuff. And it's almost as if I was having to lead them to the water to get anything done. And then something weird happened. That we got through part of the adventure. I prepared, I had enough material. We were going to have mostly a role play with no dice, no combat, a session that was sort of revolving around that. And one of the players had expressed an interest in that sort of game. And then they started talking about all sorts of things, really inappropriate things, which I won't talk about here. But the conversation started to turn towards cows, of all things, and cow abductions, cow mutilations, and just all sorts of weird stuff. So what did I do? I had lost control of the group. It happens to the best of us and the worst of us. It's going to happen to you one day, and you'll have to deal with it in your own way. And in my way, I decided, okay, so be it. They're going to talk about cows. That is what this session is going to be about. So it wound up being all about farmers who were losing their cows. The cows were being butchered in the middle of the night and then disappearing. And there had also been sort of, discussions and talk of flying cows. So they went off they decided, okay, Fred's made it apparent that this is the adventure for tonight. And it took me like at least an hour, half an hour to get them to a point where they were actually doing something. But we got there, and I made the entire adventure around cows and them trying to find out what was going on. And they encountered for the very first time flying vampire cows. Yes, I am aware they thought it was quite strange. It's the first time I've ever used vampire cows in my game, and it might well be the last time, but it certainly got me through a session. I was really struggling last night. It's been an awful lot going on for me, and that was my recourse, as I decided, okay, I'd lost control of the group, and I'm going to just run my adventure revolving around vampire cows. And so they have started their journey, but what it means is I've now set up, somehow the vampire cows must have been turned into vampires. Makes sense that it would be a vampire. So I have introduced a vampire into the story, just not directly at this particular time. Indirectly introduced a new villain. And since they've managed to polish off every single potential villain, apart from the Rotten King. The Rotten King was a were-rat who was operating in some sewers. They've managed to he got away. But I haven't brought him back yet, mainly because I want him to get significantly more powerful, and also too, they're a little bit hard to track. They have a lot more mobility than everybody else on the planet of Cerebus. So that's what I'm doing currently with my game. And yes, there was a lot of weird looks at me last night, and I thought it was perfectly reasonable. How's it going, Wyatt? Hey, what do you recommend for minis for the Lost Mine of Phandelver? In terms of miniatures, you're starting off for the very first time using miniatures, by the way. Is that the case, Wyatt? Because I've done a lot of videos on where to buy cheap miniatures and how to use alternatives and how to make your own tokens and pawns. But if you're wanting miniatures, I guess my question is, what is your budget and what's your expectation in terms of what you can get? You know, I guess I need a little bit more detail. All right, okay. So first off, it's full of enough different monsters in it that you probably won't be able to get everything that you want. But an idea of budget is always good. There are Dungeons and Dragons board games, and I always recommend, particularly if people want miniatures and they don't mind painting them because they're unpainted, it's much more expensive to buy painted miniatures. And Reaper Bones are not cheaper. They are unpainted, sometimes requiring assembly, and you can get a lot more miniatures from the Dungeons and Dragons board games if you're really, really interested. There's the Wrath of Shardalon. That one will give you very generic stuff. Kobolds, not quite so helpful, I guess. I think it gives you some orcs, about 3, and about $100. Okay. Are you in the United States? Are you in America? I guess your location's important. I'm not trying to get information out of you to compromise you in any way, but you're talking about $100 roughly, and I have to have some idea of your location, because if you're in somewhere like the United Kingdom, then this option using Dungeons and Dragons board games is not going to work because it's just way too expensive. So yes, which country are you in? Are you in North America, South America, the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, France, India, the USA? Okay. All right. So you can use Amazon, and you should be able to get free shipping from Amazon for whatever you purchase, correct? That's my understanding anyway. So yes, the Wrath of Shardalon is very general, and I've done a review on where to buy cheap miniatures, and you're welcome to look at that video. It shows you, I actually show you what's in the box. There's also the Castle Ravenloft board game, which I think is probably the next best option because it's got undead stuff in it, and that'll probably cover most of your options. It won't cover absolutely everything, but there is a dragon in the Wrath of Shardalon, and you'll want a dragon. This dragon's a little bit bigger than the one that you'll need for Lost Mine of Phandelver, but who cares? There's a lich, a Dracolich, and a zombie dragon in the Castle Ravenloft board game, and you should be able to pick up both of those boxes for your $100, and you'll get some about 10. I think there's about 5 character miniatures, 5 to 6 character miniatures in each, and you'll also get a variety of different things that you should find useful. So wolves, rat swarms, stuff like that, all of that are pretty standard fare. So hopefully that's helpful to you, man. And then you just need, if you want them painted, you just need lots of time. If you got kids, grab some cheap paints and some cheap brushes, and get them to do the base coats for you. Even if they don't do all of the fine detail, you can tidy up everything else later on. Get them to do all the base coats for you. Even if you give them the primer. The primer for most miniatures is not particularly poisonous. Well, it shouldn't be. And you should be able to give that to your kids to paint up your miniatures for you. And then you can do all the fiddly hard stuff. Make it look more interesting. Also, what paint do you use to paint minis? Okay, so what I'm using here, and you can get these from different locations, not just from Amazon. My understanding is my brother buys it from some place in China online. Vallejo. Do not get the Citadel paints. They are far too expensive. They're like twice the price, and you really don't get what you're paying for, unfortunately. So it's not necessary to go and get carried away. But these are a very good paint. It's acrylic, and it tends to be what people are using nowadays. And it's what my brother uses when he's doing his paint jobs. So hang on, I'm just going to grab something so that where is it? Found it. That's what I was after. So see, this is what I should have been doing, is I should have had this container with a bit of blue tag attached and then stuck my miniature onto it like so it was easier to handle. So I don't want it with the black finger of death. Make life a lot easier for myself, correct? Well, that's the idea anyway. Alright, let's put a bit more paint out and I'll continue that process. Now I needed to have 4 of these things, but I don't, unfortunately. Hopefully that answered your questions, Wyatt. I'm glad I was able to be helpful, Wyatt. That's good. So yes, I have been thinking a lot about my channel, and it's doing reasonably well. Man, there's so much stiff competition. You guys have got such a huge choice and range of things, and I've noticed a couple of channels who are doing things that I almost exclusively was doing. I'm the only one doing, and that is Dungeon Dudes. I don't know if anybody's seen these guys, but they do quite ultra high definition video, and they seem to have really high quality production. They do 1 video a week usually, and they do anything from 20 to 30 minutes. It's quite involved, and they cover pretty much everything that you would need to. They do a lot of research, and the back and forth between the two of them is quite good. So all very interesting. But yes, there's a lot of competition now, I've noticed on YouTube for Dungeons and Dragons, and just, you know, who's going to be watching what. So it's been a very interesting process for me to get my head around, because I'd been able to almost exclusively was the only one doing the kind of content that I do, but that's just not the case anymore. Alright, so I'm using a smaller brush to get it into the smaller areas because it's going to be too hard otherwise. And that should hopefully cover it. And of course, I've got to coat this fairly quickly, because even though the weather is not as hot, the paint's still going to dry fairly fast. And yes, just getting it on, just getting it coated. It's the first trick. I know you can't necessarily see everything that I'm doing on inside. I'm just trying to get into little crevices right now. Try to turn it around so you can see it. So yes, how's everybody else been doing in terms of their own games? Have you been trying out new things, doing strange things in your games? I would be interested to hear. It's always nice to talk about what other people are doing in their games. So yeah, coat it, slight highlights, and then I figure I'm done with my black pudding. Nothing particularly difficult for today, unfortunately. What I wish I had was an airbrush so I could just spray the paint on real fast. But I don't, and I'm not really that good at painting anyway, so... Oh, man. You'd think getting into the crevices would be easier than this, but it isn't. There we go. Just find all the little bits and pieces. Get it into the... There, so there's the trick, right? You got to make sure you have a big brush, a small brush, and some medium-sized brushes so you can get into various locations. I think the hardest one to paint is definitely going to be this miniature out of all of them, just because there's so many cavities compared to the others. There we go. And alright, let's flip that over around just a little bit. Flip it around. So yes, I'm all prepared for my next game that I'll be running on Thursday night, and I'm going to be utilising more monsters from the Tome of Beasts from Kobold Press because they've been really entertaining, and I've been quite pleased with how they're going. Nothing wrong with the monsters out of the monster manual, but my players are well and truly used to them, so it's nice to be able to throw in something a little bit different, or at least modify the monsters in the monster manual so that they feel a bit more fresh, so they're not the same old thing. And a lot of the monsters I find in the monster manual for Dungeons & Dragons 5e, most of them don't seem to do very much other than reduce hit points. You know, there's a couple that sort of do other things. You know, they might grapple or restrain you or impose a condition. Those are the good ones. It's the other ones that don't do anything particularly interesting. And you're sort of left to figure out your own tactics, which is why I've started doing the tactics videos, so that people have something to sort of work with, so they can make their monsters seem a little bit more interesting to people. And that's what I've been doing today, actually. I've been working through and trying to get the artwork and the thumbnails and scenes organised for the next lot of monster tactic videos. So I've got I've done 2 or 3 recently, and we're probably going to have, I would say I'm going to do at least a week's worth of monster tactic videos, and then we'll have like a video for the players. I feel like the combat workshop was a good idea that I did yesterday, so that might get repeated again. We might do something slightly different, obviously. And then I've got a whole bunch of pre-recorded videos that I'll release. But yes, I would imagine I'm probably going to spend the next at least 2.5 weeks just doing monster tactic videos before I start working on something else. And John, Shackle and myself have been talking about doing some feat videos on Xanathar's Guide to Everything, but I was also thinking of just doing some feat videos on some of the feats that are in the player's handbook, just about getting some time, making sure that he's not working and I'm not working, and getting around there and shooting that stuff. So yes, all in the pipe, all likely to come in time. I'm always working on trying to create new content. I do that while I'm at work. And I'm also in the process of, I think I've mentioned it before, I'm also in the process of trying to set up the next lot of class guides. So the Paladin will be revealed, I would imagine, in just under a month's time. We'll have a whole series on the Paladin. And yes, we'll go into great detail, hopefully, and cover all of that. I did a video on Reckless Attack for the Barbarian, and I said I would respond to it once I got confirmation and information from Jeremy Crawford. I've had no real response from Jeremy, so I'm going to have to send him another message. I don't know if I'm going to need to retract that video yet, but we'll see. I don't have a problem with doing that. Retracting the video and reshooting it is not a problem. I'll just do it as a live stream. It was a live stream to begin with anyway. Okay, and there we go. You'd think it'd be easy to just get something covered in black paint with a brush, but honestly, so many little bits just got missed. You've got to use a small brush just to get into the little fine pieces. Okay, so like here, I missed all of this. Every time I turn it, there's another spot that I've missed. Just because it needs a nice, fine, small brush to get into the little crevices. I've been spending a lot of time looking at some of the Pulp Fiction movies. I don't know if you realise, but I'm a fan of movies. I like movies a lot. And I've been looking at the Lost Jedi, which, you know, my problem is that I could see when I was watching that movie that there was a whole lot of stuff they were trying to do. They were trying to be very different. I feel like they were a little bit callous with other people's work, and they were also trying to surprise everybody. But as I'm watching it, I'm like, I'm not actually surprised. I kind of see where this is going. The only thing that I thought was a big surprise was what happened with Luke at the end. It was actually kind of disappointing. But it's interesting how the speculation about the next movie, Star Wars 9, is continuing on, and J.J. Abrams is going to be picking it up. That wasn't initially the plan, but I have concerns about an entire trilogy of movies. That's 3 movies made by Rian Johnson. I know he did Loopers, and Loopers was never a movie I was particularly fond of. I just don't quite understand why he was picked to direct this movie. In fact, I don't understand it at all. What I don't understand also is the decision to have a different director and allow different story takes to take place for a trilogy. It doesn't make any sense. It would be like me as a dungeon master starting a story, running one session, then handing it over to somebody else and saying, okay, you continue the story, and then them handing it on to somebody else and then continuing the story. And how do you make that all link up? If the story is supposed to link together, that's what, 3 parts, 3 movies combined, they need to link. And the only way to make them link and work without making a complete mess of it in terms of story-wise is to actually have the same people involved. So I do not understand how they possibly thought that was even remotely a sensible thing to do. In fact, I just don't understand it at all. Okay, alright, that's that one done. We'll grab, I believe I've got, I knew I had a few more containers. I've got a few more containers I can stick things to, and I've got a bunch of blue tag, which I probably should have said, make sure you bring some blue tag. I got some blue tag, so I'll pull that out. Always handy to have a bit of extra blue tag on hand. Be surprised how useful it is. And it's been invaluable to me for sticking things on, like so. Just give me a second, I'm going to grab my containers. There we go, another one. This is for the larger blobby thing here. Let's just squeeze him on, like so. Just to make it a bit easier to get at. So I don't have to hold it. I want one with the black finger. Oops, stay put, don't knock it around. And just clean out that brush. There we go, got it. That wasn't too hard. Alright, next. It's a bit more black. There's going to be a lot of black used today, obviously. The black puddings, right? So there should be black involved somewhere. Okay, so let's pick that up. So what I've done is I've got a little bit of water on the side, and I'm trying not to add water to the paint. I'm adding the paint to the water instead, just so I can get the little bits that I missed. There we go, in there. Very good. And it's kind of weird painting a black ooze. You would have thought, well, let's just spray it black and be done with it, right? Why am I even bothering? Seriously, what is the point in spending your time painting a black ooze when you could just grab some black spray paint and just spray that sucker? It's because I can't mess it up. It requires very little on my part. All I got to do is move the brush around. What was the other thing I was noticing? Cobra Kai. So for those of you who grew up with the Karate Kid, and I did, I think as they progressed on, they got worse and worse and worse, but I was kind of interested in this new Cobra Kai TV series. It's a TV series on Red, YouTube Red, which I was kind of surprised by. But it kind of looks quite fun. I enjoyed the first 2 episodes. Will I pick up YouTube Red so I can watch the rest of it? Probably not. But I still thought it was an interesting concept. And I like how Johnny isn't really, I mean, he's still a bit of an ass, but he's not presented as being completely sort of, bent, and with no redeeming features whatsoever. He doesn't have too many, but it's still quite fun. I actually feel like it's more about Johnny and less about Daniel LaRusso, to be honest. And I actually have enjoyed the scenes with Johnny more than I have with LaRusso, so that's it's kind of weird, isn't it? Considering how the story in the movie started off. Alright, okay, so I'm definitely going to grab my little containers. I know I've got them around here somewhere, and even if I don't, I can use a paint pot and squeeze something onto the top of that, right? They used to be flat, made it a lot easier, but these things aren't now. So we'll just squeeze that onto there and then press that in. That'll make it a little bit easier to work with. Do the same thing again with another one. Oh, I'll just use the oil. Just stick that on there, like so. Hi Brian, how's it going? It's been a while. How's everything going at your end in terms of your game? I'm all here. I'm all welcome. Welcome to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, where I chill out. I'm taking a lazy day. I'm doing a lazy day for my videoing, which is basically I'm just painting something black. Oh dear. Okay, I've been chatting about all sorts of things. Talking mostly about Star Wars and the new Cobra Kai TV series, and I think somebody popped in and asked about where to buy cheap Dungeons and Dragons miniatures, things like that. So we answered a few questions. I am planning to do more than just paint this black, by the way, even if it seems like I'm not. I'm just really just wanted to coat it black, and then I'm going to do some highlights. Black is my favourite lack of colour. Yeah, it's a bit like that, isn't it? I've got some tan and some white. That's really the extent of my highlighting for the black, the black pudding. I've got 4 of them to deal with, right? So I thought, okay, well, 3 colours is enough, and that'll do. Shouldn't put too much effort into it. It is a black pudding after all, right? I won't be able to get away with that forever, though. Oh dear. Okay, so we'll let that dry. Yes, I've been contending with vampire cows last night. My group had their first experience of vampire cows in the campaign. Although this campaign is more a collection of small adventures rather than an overarching Wizards of the Coast storyline or my own storyline. I've been aiming more for just to surprise and scare my players, or just perplex them as much as I possibly can. And so far I have succeeded, apparently. They are perplexed. Yeah. I think one of them was saying that he's enjoying it, the change of pace from what we used to do. So that's good. I'll keep using those short adventures and stringing them together. But at some point I've got to have a main villain that they can sort of focus on. They've been spending their time repairing their base right now. Vampire cows sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah, it was very strange, and it all stemmed from them going off topic, and I couldn't get them back on topic, and so I just picked up the string and decided, okay, we're going to deal with. You're dealing with vampire cows now, and cow abductions and mutilations and things like that. But yeah, and I had a whole adventure already lined up that was supposed to be really interesting. It was in the desert. And I won't go into too much detail because one of them might be watching. You never know, and they didn't want to pick that up. They were all like, no, we're gonna go and do something else, and that consisted of not really doing anything at all. It was weird. What about your own campaign, Brian? Anything you'd like to share? Anything you're currently doing with your game that you that's been going on that's been interesting? Alright, so I'm going to clean out these brushes. Let's just make sure I've got enough black on there. Just check the other ones. The problem is you look at it, you think you've coated everything, and then you find another patch that you've missed, right? There we go, in there. And oh man, I found a whole bunch, and look at this. I don't know if you can see it. I'm trying to turn it around and paint it at the same time. It's not so easy. It's actually pretty difficult. But after this, I am going to go and watch Critical Role, and I'm going to cook dinner. That is my plan. Cook dinner and watch Critical Role. That is what I'm doing with my day off. Oh man, there's so much black that I missed. What's that say? What's that, Brian? Don't currently have a group, but working on homebrew my campaign world. Oh, okay. Have you? Are you just taking some time from it, or is it? I know personally I've struggled to keep my home group together. I've continued with the public games. That's really easy to do, but my own private home group, I can't play with them because I'm working. It's just not possible. And until things change, that's not going to change. I can't play with them, which is sort of sucks. It's one of those things, life gets in the way. Work has really been the deciding factor. I think I just don't have time to do home brew stuff. I used to spend a lot of time doing it. I used to spend like hours and hours after work. I'd come home and sit down. Nowadays, I spend my time preparing for a live stream, then going and doing all the things you normally do to sort of, get yourself ready for the next day. And then I'll come back and then I've got to do all the metadata. So that's a good hour or so of my day gone. And I've got maybe, 3 or 4 hours after work to work with, after commuting. So yeah, a little bit tricky. What I would really like to do is work on some more monsters. I like working on monsters. Not so much making them, not physically anyway, but just creating some different stat blocks. Something that can be interesting, that has got a story weaved into it in some way. That's what I like spending my time on. I think my players were asking me, what's the name of the city that we're looking at? And I said, you tell me. And they were like, what? And I said, yeah, you tell me. You tell me the name of the city. I was having one of my lazy days last night, and it's like anything that they started asking me is like, well, you tell me the name of the city. They came up with some terrible names, but in the end we got one that was suitable. What's that, Ryan? I enjoyed your combat workshop. Oh, good. Hard to believe the first level characters beat the ogre without taking any damage. Yeah, but also I rolled very low. I'm notorious for rolling very low as Dungeon Master, but it's actually not unusual. It's actually quite normal. I have been trying to explain to people that, honestly, I was part of the alpha play test for the monster manual, and I did play test level 5, level 6 characters. My group were playing at that level, and I chucked everything at them. You can actually crank up the power on those monsters, or use much higher level monsters than you think you can, because the maths just doesn't work anymore. There's too many variables involved. A mathematical equation to work out how difficult to make your encounters is just not a feasible way to run the game. Running Dungeons and Dragons is more art than technical. It's more an art than technical. That's my view anyway. Do you reckon that if I did some more of those workshops, people would be interested? It seemed like it was reasonably popular. There was maybe, 10, 11 people who jumped in at some point for the bulk of it to watch and see what was going on. I was thinking I would do another one probably in about a week's time. But the next couple of weeks, as I was saying, is going to focus more on the Dungeon Master, because I spent like 3 weeks on the Barbarian, which was really more tailored to players than for Dungeon Masters. So I feel like monster tactic videos for the Dungeon Masters is the go-to, but that still leaves me the weekends. And the weekends usually I'll do at least one video for the players or the Dungeon Masters if I've done a whole series on a particular topic. Alright, let's just clean all those brushes off. So everything is now black. And now I've got to start using my dry brush. I think the dry brush is going to work. I'm still not convinced. We will see. Alright, come on. Clean off. Here we go. Alright, got it. A drink of water. I know there was a request to do more magic, so that's why the workshop that I did yesterday was sort of focusing around the cleric and casting a few spells. And somebody has also requested the dragon. I have been reluctant to cover dragons because dragons are such a complicated monster to run. And if I start covering something like dragons, there's so many different things you can do with a dragon that it would be such a long video. I'm always sort of a bit concerned. My videos have gotten longer. Normally, as you know, if you watch my stuff, which I know you do, my videos used to be between 3 and 4 minutes, sometimes 6 minutes at the most, but they were very short, bite-sized, and with the live streaming, they're much longer now. And I think that is made it quite difficult for people to find time to watch them. It's fine to be showing up and having a chat in the live stream while it's taking place, but not everybody's got that kind of time to sort of work with. So, and I get it, makes perfect sense. All right. So I'm going to just brush that off and see if this works. I'm going to try it on one of the smaller ones and see if it's going to do what I want it to do. Still a little bit too much paint. Still too much paint. See, this is the problem with using this method, is that you've got to get so little paint on it that when you brush it off, you're only leaving behind a small amount, and that's not always possible. Not until the paint sort of starts to harden a bit. What's that, Brian? Yeah, not just the dragon's own abilities, but the legendary lair actions make for a long, complicated video. Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, I did a video on lair actions, which is separate. But once you start bringing in the dragon and the lair actions and the legendary actions, it's really a long video. I feel like if I was to do it, it would have to be like today, where I do a really long live stream, or like yesterday, where I have time to sort of spend a bit of time, focusing on things, giving people an opportunity to ask questions. Otherwise, it's not going to work out. It's just too complicated. And also too, it's nobody else has been doing tactic videos for monsters, and so it's new ground for me. I'm always a little bit dubious about how well I can perform in front of a live audience without botching things up, and I'm always worried I might botch things up, and I don't really want to do that if I can help it. It's still far too much paint. That cloth is helping a little bit, but it's not been enough yet so far. Okay. So, right now, I am just trying to brush the tan over to give it highlights in certain locations. And it's kind of working. It also means that the black pudding won't be completely black. It'll sort of be slightly off in colour. There we go. I don't know if you can make that out. So yeah, it's got a slight tinge of tan to it. I'm going to do that with all the others. Whoa. Okay, let's drop that in there. Oh, it's just getting it started. It always feels like that's too much. Just need the brush to dry just a bit more, or at least the paint to dry a little bit more. I've been finding that shooting as many videos as I have been is actually quite taxing. I've almost, there were a couple of days there where I was thinking I would just stop. But the problem is, my alternative to stopping is to just go and watch TV, and that hasn't been really helping. So it's not really giving me anything. So hence why I haven't done that. I really miss teaching, and the only time I really get to teach in any capacity is on YouTube now, which is sort of sad. Okay, what's that? What's that, Brian? Is there a reason you choose tan for your highlight color instead of something like grey? Well, one, I've used tan because I had tan. Two, I'm going to use grey, but I'm going to make grey from black and white, and I just want it to look a lot dirtier. You know, I want my black pudding to sort of not be pristine in terms of its colour, which is why I've used tan. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. I don't know that it'll necessarily be, it'll look fantastic, but I thought it would help muddy it up a little bit. And black puddings, I'm sure, go where there is plenty of mud and dirt and grime. In fact, they absolutely know they do. So, because I have my own personal black pudding living under my bed. He eats everything that I drop on the floor. I'm only kidding. No, I don't. I don't have a black pudding underneath my bed. I think nowadays you call that dog. It's a dog, right? Some cats don't really clean up after you. You know, if you drop food on the floor, no, that's not really. It has to be in the bowl. Occasionally they might pursue something if it looks like it's caviar or something. But dogs are a little bit different, right? Okay, so that actually didn't come out too badly. That's actually a lot less browny than the other ones, which is actually what I wanted. Huh. As I said, man, it always helps if the paint dries just a little bit. Makes a big difference. Because there's just a light tinge of tan on it now. That is what I was after. Awesome. Very good. My friends have been talking about Marvel's Infinity Wars movie, and I'm eager to go and see it, just so I don't have to contend with telling people to stop talking so they don't ruin it for me. It's going to be interesting to see a lot of characters that I've watched for a few years perish. And that's my understanding, is there's going to be a lot of character death, right? So it's going to be kind of sad to watch a few more characters go. I know they're replacing them with new ones. Oh, you went and saw Infinity Wars on Saturday? Oh, cool. I wanted to go and see it tomorrow. But there's things going on in my life right now, and I thought, well, no, I won't do that, because I thought something else was going to happen. And now I feel like I'm going to have to just wait another week before I can go, which is going to drive me nuts a little bit. I really like movies. I miss going to movies, even bad ones. Except for, what was it? Was it 2016? Is it Ghostbusters? Oh my god! I mean, I can sit through most movies, but that movie just drove me nuts. And what annoyed me is it shouldn't have been as bad as that. You know, it's got nothing to do with women. I just don't understand why everybody thinks that Ghostbusters was a comedy. It was actually a horror. It was really scary. and that movie just tried to make it too funny. But anyway, I diverge. Okay, so let's... Still too much paint on there. It's just not dry enough. It's always the problem, right? Trying to get your dry brush dry enough. Dry enough. I've been brushing it off, but it's not enough. Alright. I'm just going to have to use the brush and my finger. Brush and... Oh, that's... That, okay, there we go. I think we're in business now. It's working a lot better. Good. Excellent. That's what I was after. Okay, I'm going to just work it around, I guess. I don't understand how Disney's managed to do really well with the Marvel movies, and yet I feel like they've been a little bit heavy-handed with the Star Wars movies. I enjoyed Rogue One, even though it was very, very sad. It was a very sad movie, and I've never seen Darth Vader more terrifying than he was in something like Rogue One. I mean, he was terrifying, but that was the only time as an adult rewatching that I was like, I mean, if I was a kid, I would be absolutely just beside myself in terms of what was going on. That was a very good scene with Rogue One and Darth Vader. But I feel very sort of, like I missed out on something that I really wanted. I really wanted the Han Solo, Leia and Luke Skywalker scene with the new characters all in one place, or at least the old characters all getting back together again. And I'm sure they did too. I just don't understand why they didn't do that. And you can't say it was because the story, because they created the story. The story is the story. You can create a story and you can still have something that sort of brings them all back together. I think even the actors would have loved to have got together and had a scene together, but they didn't get an opportunity to do that. It's kind of sad. And let's get real. On the original movies, they weren't always together. They were sort of off separately doing their own thing, but they did eventually come back together at some point. We just don't see that. And after such a long spell, it would have been awesome to see that happen. I really miss the idea of seeing Han Solo, Luke Skywalker and Leia in the same room or location, getting back together again for whatever reason, even if, Luke was not quite the way he was. I kind of struggling to understand why Luke was quite as different as he was in The Last Jedi. What's that, Brian? Yeah, getting to see the scene before Leia escaped showed how awesome Vader could be. Yeah, we always knew that Vader could be terrifying and awesomely frightening. But that was really, really well done. It's just a shame that the movie is just so sad. Still a good movie. I really struggle with the idea of buying that movie and keep putting it into my collection, just because I'm just wondering, will I be able to get myself to rewatch it? I often rewatch movies years later, and of course you can't get them from something like a video store, and you can get them off stream by hiring them. But I don't like streaming videos because I'm in New Zealand, and streaming movies, it's always buffering. It just sucks. So I don't like it. but I just don't understand why you would do something like... Why would you not have that scene with the three of them back together? I just don't get it. Even JJ didn't make it happen. It was very, very strange. Okay, alright, I feel like I've tanned it out. It's well and truly tanned. So let's ditch the tan and let's move on to the grey. And it's now an hour and you've been watching me painting grey and tan for like how long? It was ages, right? So let's just do some grey. Mix that up and we'll make that happen. So, and I'm probably not going to add an enormous amount of grey. So it probably will be quite a light brushing in terms of what's going on there. And I'll separate it. For those of you who haven't used these paints before, make sure that you thin them out. Don't thin them out, sorry, and when you add them, don't just drop the paint into the location you want, because I've found that can sort of change the tint just too quickly, which is why I've got the white over here and I'm adding it to the black to change it, and that's going to need to be a little bit more, so I'll add a bit more white. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Oh, come on. It's kind of odd how, is it my imagination? Somebody had said that there was going to be a Han Solo movie. And I was like, okay, a Han Solo movie? I understand they are trying to pull on the old characters and use them to get traction. Obviously for newer properties that they'll bring out over time, but why Han Solo after you killed him? I just don't get it. And is it possible for somebody to do Han Solo when it's not Harrison Ford? I'm very suspicious that an actor trying to play a character that Harrison Ford did so well. Harrison Ford is no slouch in terms of an actor. So how is it you're going to up the ante with that? Yeah, Han Solo prequel. I'm going to add it here now. As an aside. Probably going to regret it, but never mind. Too late. I did it. Yeah, I just don't understand the idea of a Han Solo prequel. Yeah, because it's not going to be Harrison Ford. It's going to be somebody else. How are they supposed to compete with that? I just don't see it being possible. Oh, what was the preview like in Infinity Wars for Han Solo? I understand it's supposed to be getting released. Was it the end of this year? End of 2018? I feel like the best part of it is going to be the fact that it should have Chewbacca in it. Chewbacca will be there. That'll be about it. How else I'm not going to get too excited about the prospect. But yeah, what did you think of the trailer, Brian? Did it look alright or not too sure? I know it's strange, we're talking about Star Wars, and this is a channel that's usually dedicated to things like Dungeons and Dragons. But it's all story, right? Whether you're using... I mean, how many of the stories that are told in Star Wars are taken from existing properties? And there's a whole bunch. If you don't realise it, Edgar Rice Burroughs' stories are a lot of materials taken from there. Heaps and heaps. Much more than you might realise. And a lot of people won't even know who Edgar Rice Burroughs is. It's John Carter and Mars. Barsoom, the Barsoom novels. Okay. Alright, that was easy. Right, what have you got here, Brian? It looks good. Shows how he became a smuggler, won the Millennium Falcon from Lando, even some fun scenes between Han and Chewbacca. Alright, okay. Does the actor manage to pull off Han Solo, or do you feel like it's not quite there? I mean, you can't really tell for sure from a small snippet of a trailer, I realise, but I'm curious. Okay, so this is a slightly... This isn't even like grey. This is actually sort of an off black colour. And I'm just putting that over the top. Very, very sparingly. Like so. That's that. Let's do that again. He seems to pull off younger, less jaded Han Solo. Alright, okay. Well, maybe it'll be a good movie. It's odd to think, though, that we're going to have a Star Wars movie every single year. It just seems like so much. Totally get it. You've got to make money back. You pay so much for a franchise, you've got to make money back. But it does seem like an awful lot of Star Wars, and they're all scheduled for release at Christmas, right? To cash in on the biggest moving time for a movie, which is obviously Christmas during the holidays. All right, there we go. What is this? This is... Let's do it again. Just dab that on the piece of cloth. Plonk that over there and then brush on. Okay, cool, done. It's not too bad. My brush is gonna need cleaning in a second before it goes all yucky. Alright, so now let's go a lot lighter and try to start finishing off the touches on this thing. Okay, it's quite a bit of paint. That's quite deliberate on my part. Is it enough though? That's very grey. I think that's adequate for what I want. Use that. And good. Great. That'll work nicely. Right, give that a wash. La da 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 da. Okay, so here's the problem, right? I've got to get the paint on, and then I've got to brush it off enough for it to work for me. So I feel like I'm going to need tissue paper or something. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be doing what I want it to do. Pardon me. Just going to grab something. Won't take me a sec. Alright. Toilet paper. That's what I'll use. I'm going to use toilet paper. I would normally have tissues, but I just didn't buy any. Toilet paper will be fine though. It's all paper, right, in the end. Okay. that should be it. Let's do the small ones. Yeah, I kind of like that. Can you see that? I don't know if you can make that out. It's very, very slight. The difference is minuscule. Okay, let's just brush this off. Yep, I'm happy with that. That's good. It's working out. Let's do the bigger one. Yep, that's good. That's fine too. Here's the tricky one. This has got all the complex bits and pieces all over it. I think we'll start on the back, work on the areas that are got the most crevices and changes and shape. And grab a bit, whoops, knocked it over. Okay. What's that, Brian? It is hard to distinguish between which ones are highlights you painted and which are actually highlights due to reflecting light. Yeah, it's very, I mean, I'll bring it closer, but it's just a slight change. It's really just minuscule. It's a black pudding after all, so I don't really want to, I just want to be able to pick up and create a few highlights, and so of course the camera won't be able to pick up all of that. And the idea is for it to be subtle, and it's pretty subtle. In fact, I would say it's extremely subtle. And I'm actually deliberately not taking the brush over certain areas, so some areas are going to look a lot blacker, particularly the big flat areas. But I will bring it closer so you can have a closer look, but it is very subtle. Unless you're looking at it through my eyes, you probably won't see all of it or what's going on. Okay, do that one more time. Just come back there. Alright, okay, so I'll bring it closer, and I'll make sure I put it in the right part of the screen so you can actually see it right. So that, I don't know if you can see, there's only very small differences in shading. It's just very slight, so it still retains the look of being a black pudding, but it's just to help increase the definition of the texture on it and the shapes, so that the light will pick it up. Okay, otherwise it would just all look pretty black. So that's that one. And then this one here, I'll turn it to the side a little bit so you can see most of the highlighting is down the bottom, and I've left a lot of it off the top. I want that to be more black, but it's very subtle. And I've used black, well, primed grey, black, then I used tan, and then I went for a slight shift from the black, so it was off black and then a grey colour, quite a dark grey as it happens. And I'm not going to use white. I feel like that's actually not going to help me, so I'm going to leave the white alone. And here's the smaller one, one of the smaller ones anyway. I don't know if I've got it in the right place, but it's just a slight change, just so that the light picks it up and you can see the different blobby bits all over it. So that's that one. And here's the second smaller one. And trust me, if I hadn't painted it, you probably wouldn't have seen all the reflections from the light and the shading. I don't know if you can make out the shading. I can see it, but it's very slight. Okay, well that is it. Painting a black pudding. Doesn't look like I did very much, but honestly I did. I used black, tan, an off black, and grey. So I used 4 colours to paint something black. Isn't that crazy? Anyway, I'm going to say goodbye to you guys. I don't know if I'll do a live stream tomorrow. I might just publish a video on something like one of the spells, maybe knock or arcane lock or something like that. Maybe even sneak attack. We'll see how we go. But I will be back for those of you who are interested. The next couple of weeks I'm going to focus on the Dungeon Master with monster tactic videos, but I will be inserting some combat workshops and some videos for players that you should find useful, but it'll probably like one a week rather than one every few days. Hopefully that's going to be sufficient for most people. And yes, if you found this video helpful or informative, or you managed to sit through and watch me painting the black pudding, well done. Please like the video if you enjoyed it, and if you didn't, then you can give me the thumbs down. That's cool. Share the video with somebody if you think they might find it useful. I don't know that they necessarily will. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel and you think you might like to watch more of my stuff, I have about 500 videos for players and dungeon masters, and I do one about just about every single day usually. And yeah, you're welcome to hit the subscribe button, and also the bell button will notify you when I'm live and when I publish a new video. That can be quite helpful. I really appreciate it when people watch my videos, so thank you very much for doing that. And by watching this video, you supported my channel because I get a bit of AdSense revenue from it. I don't do Patreon, but down in the description I actually have a link to Amazon and the book depository usually, where you can buy stuff online. I get a small commission. You pay exactly the same price. You don't even have to buy the thing that it's linked to. I'm also an Amazon influencer, so I have my own little shop apparently, which should be down in the link, and if it isn't, let me know. If you have any questions and feedback you would like to give to me, then by all means you can give that to me in the chat. Otherwise, down in the comments section, what did you think? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Would you have done something differently? Would you have used different colours or colour scheme? Would you have applied white? I decided in the end not to apply white. I just felt like it was going to be too much. And hey, you guys have a great day, and till next time, keep rolling those 20s. There's the big sucker.